Hello, folks. Welcome to James Hill Sports. I am James Hill. I'm joined by a special gentleman. He is the head football coach on the highest of seven hills, Coach Willie Simmons. First and foremost, how are you? How's the family? How's the FAMU? How are the student athletes? And there's some young gentlemen who have some golden opportunities in the near future.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Everyone's doing well. The semester is winding down, so we have 10 young men in the program that will be walking across the stage this weekend, getting their degree. So that's the most important thing. That makes me extremely proud of these guys and the hard work that they've done in the classroom. So that's the most exciting thing right now. The guys having a chance to sign NFL contracts, Isaiah Land and Xavier Smith. That's a close second, right? We want those guys to be able to accomplish both of those goals. But we know not everyone will have a chance to play in the NFL, but everyone does have a chance to graduate, and to see 10 guys to add to the, I think, 13 that we had graduate in December. That's a huge chunk of our football team. Many of those guys returning that we playing this last season with their degrees in hand. So we're very excited about that, and looking forward to a great off season. But the family's doing well, and the FAMU I think is doing well, and we're looking forward to again going into the summer, with the laser focus on this coming season.
Coach, and you opened up alluding to it, but education is something that gentlemen can take with them for the rest of their lives. Talk a little bit about that and why that's so important when you look at a HBCU, a Power Five, a Group of Five, a Division Three, any respective college or university out there. When a student goes on campus and they put the work in, and years later they're able to walk across the stage, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it truly is, and obviously that's the number one thing that we talk to our student athletes about. They are student athletes. That word student comes first for a reason, and that's something that degree is something that no one can ever take away. When you get a degree from an institution like FAMU, it can take you places, and so we're really encouraging our students to take full advantage of this great opportunity. And we've had young men throughout this program that have walked out of this field house with six-figure paying jobs, with the ability to start a life that they can support their families and change their communities. And that's really what it's all about. And so, yes, we love the wins. We love, the coming championships. We love to see guys have a chance to go play professionally and continue to play this game. But nothing makes us happier than seeing our student athletes matriculate and get that degree, and again be able to go and hang it up on their in their offices, at their houses, because it's such a huge accomplishment. Many of these guys are first generation graduates in their families, and they've started a path that will hopefully carry on to their kids and then their kids, and that's what's the beautiful thing about this. So everything that we do, our number one focus is to graduate our student athletes and prepare them for life after FAMU.
Coach Simmons, when you look at Mr. Isaiah Land, a gentleman from the great state of Georgia, actually New York, but he spent some time in Georgia, and Grayson High School comes into play, and the highest of seven hills, full resume, All-American award winner. Talk a little bit about this gentleman, and again, you're talking about earning a star on your helmet. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I couldn't be prouder of Isaiah Land. When we took this job back in 2018 and hit the road to recruit, we were looking for guys that can come in and transform this program. And walking into Grayson High School, a powerhouse program there in North Georgia, outside of Atlanta, saw this wiry 6', 380 pound guy who just played with a nonstop motor, a edge to him, and we saw that as someone that could, change the culture of this team. We wanted to be tough. We wanted to be fast. He was all those things. And we said if we can just put some weight on him, he could be a pretty good player. Of course, we didn't know at the time that we'd be recruiting the Buck Buchanan Award winner as the nation's best FCS football player, or a guy that would lead the nation in sacks and tackles for loss. We just thought we were getting a really good football player. But I tell you what, he's completely bought into his time here. He's grown up and matured a whole lot. And the Dallas Cowboys are getting not only a great football player, but a upstanding gentleman, someone who's going to represent the organization in a first class manner. And I think we're going to look back, in a few years, look back at this draft, and for the second year in a row, say, FAMU put 2 guys in the league, and I think even a third with Xavier Smith, that may have a profound impact. And 32 teams really passed on him during the draft process. But the Dallas Cowboys saw enough in him and in Marquise Bell last year, the Los Angeles Rams with Xavier Smith this year, to give those guys that opportunity. And I feel really confident that they're going to show those organizations what we've seen for the last 5 years, which is that they're some of the best football players, in this country, and that they're going to outwork anyone you put in front of them.
Coach, talk about the opportunity he has with the Cowboys when he looks across the room and he sees a familiar face, a guy that he's been a student athlete with, who he knows from the highest of 7 hills, and he can go into the huddle, so to speak, in Dallas and talk things out and really work hard and have a teammate as he looks to his side.
Yeah, I think that's invaluable. Whenever you can have a guy who's doing it at that level, he can show Isaiah the ropes. The do's, the don'ts. The nightlife. Obviously, they're in Dallas, one of the biggest cities in the United States. So again, just kind of really bringing them along, and almost like that senior taking that freshman by the arm and walking them through campus and showing them where the buildings are and where the calf is and all those type things. So it'll be the same situation there. And also to be able to be in the same meeting room as one of the best defenders in the league, and Michael Parsons. They play the same position, that outside backer hybrid position. So he can learn the NFL game from Marquise, or how to conduct himself, but he can learn how to play that position at the highest level from arguably one of the top outside rush edge guys in the entire NFL, and Michael Parsons. So I just think it's a phenomenal situation for Isaiah. And if he does what he's been doing for the last really as long as I can remember him, he's going to impress a lot of people, and I think he's got a great shot to make that ball club.
Coach, now we're rolling down the turnpike. We jump over to Interstate 4. We're past Disney, and when we see that exit 27, and we take the turn and we go into Haines City, there's a gentleman there, Mr. Xavier Smith. He's been able to come into the highest of 7 hills, and he's done it the old-fashioned way, All-American. And next stop, Southern California, SoFi Stadium. And this is a guy who goes out and earns everything he can. Talk a little bit about this guy. He's crafty. He's a speedster. Anything you throw, he'll go get it. Talk a little bit about Xavier Smith.
Yeah, Xavier's, obviously another one who just, I can't say enough about what he's meant to this program, the work that he's put in. And, we knew we had something special with Xavier after about the second day when we got here. He's just he's an amazing individual. Graduated here with over 3-point GPA. Was in grad school this past season. 2-time All-American. One of the top 20 all-time reception leaders in FCS history, I believe. Definitely top 25. And just the career he had here. Again, it's not unprecedented because obviously there have been some phenomenal receivers that have come through FAMU, but his name will ring in the same Mount Rushmore of FAMU receivers as a Ray Alexander, a Jacquay Nunnally, a Terry Mickens, Robert Wilson. I mean, those guys. I mean, he, again, 2-time All-American, MEAC All-American, first team, SWAC first team, All-American, Box to Row, FCS, you name it, he's done it, and just did it the right way, just through hard work, through commitment. Through being a smart football player, and he took advantage of every opportunity. When he went out to New Orleans for the HBCU Legacy Bowl in the combine, he blew it out the water. Ran one of the fastest times at practice. He was just doing what Xavier Smith always does and catching balls on defenders. And then obviously won the MVP of the Legacy Bowl. So I think Xavier was one. Everyone knew about Isaiah Lamb going into the season, and it was kind of okay, where will he fall? Will he be a draft pick? Will he be a mid-round guy, late guy? But everyone kind of knew a guy of his caliber was going to get that opportunity. Questions were there about Xavier Smith, just because of his stature. He's 5'9", he's 170 pounds. But again, he made it to where they had to take him. And I know the Rams really, really liked him throughout the process. Fortunately for us, KJ Black, my former offensive coordinator, is there doing a coaching fellow, and we talked a lot about Xavier. And this wasn't a favor that was done. the receiver coach absolutely loved Xavier Smith. And there were a couple of other teams as well after his pro day that approached me about, the possibility of a free agent contract if he didn't get drafted. So I have the utmost confidence that both those guys are going to do what they've been doing. And I think it's going to be really, really difficult to release one of them because I just think that much of them as men. I think that much of them as football players. But Xavier Smith, the true success story. Everybody knows his story. Stocking Amazon boxes, his first year out of high school, no future in football. Walks on the FAMU as just a guy that just asks if he can come out and try out for the team. Obviously, red shirts, and then when we got here, just the rest is history. So again, I think his story is one that's going to resonate throughout Polk County, throughout the state. Anyone who's willing to listen, they can learn a lot about perseverance, about faith, about trusting the process from Xavier Smith and some of the things that he's gone through to get himself to this stage in his life.
Coach, the conversation of exposure and HBCU student athletes who want the exposure, who want a golden opportunity, and all they want is a chance. Talk a little bit about exposure is the key. And then when you look at just the exposure factor, I remember the last time I was on the highest of Seven Hills and I looked over and the Chicago Bears were there looking at some of your student athletes. But just talk a little bit about it's all about exposure and guys want to do the rest.
Yeah, obviously 2 years in a row, we've had prospects that we felt were draft worthy. Marquise Bell after the 21 season, and obviously Isaiah Land after this past season. And it's very frustrating, obviously, when those guys don't get to hear their names called on draft day. Obviously, they both signed, with the Cowboys, and both will have a chance to make the team and have a storied career. But again, it's just a little frustrating. So, but again, our guys get exposure every day during the fall and most days during the spring. Like the NFL scouts are there. They're coming to our practices. They're coming in and watching film. They're getting information on our guys. They did the junior day to get a list of the rising seniors. We had 31 scouts in 21 or 22's pro day. We had 24 scouts this past pro day. So again, I think what people have to understand is that it's not easy to be drafted. There are only 259 picks, and that's every draft eligible senior. There's over thousands. There's thousands of draft eligible seniors. And so when you look at that small number, you can slip through the cracks sometimes. And so you have to work really hard to check all the boxes. It starts obviously with, what you do off the field. Any blunder off the field pretty much crosses you off the list, because again, there's so many qualified players that you don't want to take a player who has, a checkered history, right? There's some question marks about their character. So you got to do that part. They really place a high premium on guys graduating, and having a degree in hand when it comes to the draft process. Obviously, you got to stay healthy, and have a clean bill of health, pass physicals. And of course, the production piece has to be there, and if you play at a lower level of football, FCS ball, even sometimes Group of 5, you got to dominate your competition, so all those things play a role. And you got to have the size measurables, the height, the weight, the speed, all those things. So, it's difficult. We've had some guys that we feel were worthy, obviously, and they're obviously doing that now, being in the league. But again, it's a situation where, not to call out any other schools, but across the street, they had one guy drafted, and that's a Power 5 program. There were other Power 5 programs who had one guy drafted, and so there were only 10, I think, FCS draft picks total this year, which is one of the lowest numbers, that we've ever had, or that we had in a very long time. Of course, only one HBCU football player. So I think it's a combination of things. I do think that there's, needs to be some emphasis placed on maybe evaluating HBCU players and FCS players a little bit closer, and try to give a true evaluation. But I think with the COVID waivers and guys really getting 6 full years in college, you got to look at guys like Stetson Bennett and some of those guys. Without COVID, they're done. They're not playing in college this year. And so, maybe that opens a door for someone else who didn't get drafted, but that extra year really helps some guys. And so we got to deal with that for a couple more years before they cycle out. But there are a lot of variables at play. So yes, it's very frustrating. And I do think that there needs to be some conversation pieces amongst scouts, NFL personnel, general managers. I've had some of those conversations with some of the ones that I know and that I trust, and some agree, that, hey, this is something to look at. I do think there's misrepresentation, but same thing with black coaches, black coordinators, and not HBCU football players being drafted. So, yeah, it is something that we talk about, but we can't. I don't think we can stop fighting and stop, being vocal about it. But our guys have to just continue to just work hard every day and try to do the right things. And when they're blessed with that opportunity, just make the most of it. Because the goal is to get to the NFL, right? Getting drafted is kind of a golden nugget in that. But if you could tell me that, hey, you ain't gonna get drafted, but you're gonna play 10 years in the league, I'll take it every day of the week, as opposed to you're gonna get drafted 6th round, 7th round, and you won't make it out of training camp. You'll always be able to say you got drafted, but you won't be able to say you played in the NFL. The goal is to play in the NFL. And so even guys who have to take the free agent route, go make the most of it, make the roster, and then again, build your career from there. So I do think there's some benefit in getting in the door. And luckily for us, we have 3 guys in the door right now. And I think some more coming down the pipe.
Coach Simmons, the conversation of guys using the free agency route, if you will, and going in and trying to go to a camp in a situation that's a best fit for them. When you look at that conversation as opposed to, a school or actually a team, an organization picking the player of their liking in those 7 rounds, just talk a little bit about those different routes, if you will.
Well, there is some conventional thought that it may even be more beneficial as far as your chances to make the team if you're an undrafted free agent as opposed to maybe a 6th round or 7th round draft pick. Because when you're an undrafted free agent, when the draft is over, you have a multitude of teams calling you, trying to sign you. And so what you get to do now, it goes back to recruiting. Because now you get to say, okay, if I'm a wide receiver, this team has X number of receivers on their roster. This team has some older veterans who they're trying to find some younger legs. This team has a quarterback. This team throws the football a lot more, so you're able to kind of pick the best fit for you as far as the situation and go in there and give yourself a better chance, as opposed to you're drafted 6th, 7th round, you're locked into that team. You can't really go to the Cowboys if they draft you and be like, well, hey, can you call the Texans and see if they're willing to do a swap? You're 6th round for that. It doesn't work like that. The draft is the draft. So when guys are picked, they're locked in until they're released. Whereas Isaiah's Land had his option of teams to go to. He got called by probably 6 teams after the draft, or during the draft, actually, saying, hey, if you slide through and don't get drafted, we would like to sign you as an undrafted free agent. He had his choice. He wanted to go to the Cowboys. Xavier Smith, there was kind of a little bidding war, and that's why he kind of posted his a little bit after Isaiah, because he was still mulling over which opportunity was the best for him. And he ultimately picked the Los Angeles Rams. And so there is some conventional wisdom. It hurts you on the signing bonus side of it, because those signing bonuses are a little bit higher for a draft pick than it is for an undrafted free agent. But again, at the end of the day, you make the roster, that's when you get the quote-unquote big bucks, right? You don't get it with the signing bonus. You get it by making the roster. And so I feel really good about Isaiah Land's chances and Xavier Smith's chances, just like we felt really good about Marquise Bell's situation. A lot of guys that got drafted in that class with Marquise Bell got sent home during training camp. Marquise was able to stay on because he picked the right situation with a group that was favorable and knew who he was and liked his skill set, and he was able to make the team. So again, I know we all dream about having our names called on draft day, but like I said, the number one goal is to make it into that NFL roster on opening day, that 53-man roster. And then getting drafted late doesn't guarantee that. Free agency doesn't guarantee that. If you're not a 1st, 2nd, possibly 3rd round pick, you're kind of fighting for it anyway, right? They'll cut a 4th rounder. They'll cut a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder if you don't outperform that free agent that they signed, and after the draft was over. So again, not getting drafted is definitely not a death sentence. There's still an opportunity for you to make the team if you go and do the right things to do what you're capable of doing.
Hey, Coach, it's been called the prime effect. I call it the prime factor. But when you look at Jackson, and obviously it's not Fam, but there's a gentleman there, Mr. Bolden, who has an opportunity with the Patriots. And he's the only name that goes down in history, as it were, being drafted in 2023. You've had a chance to see him a couple times over the last two Orange Blossom Classics in South Florida. But when you see a player like that represent HBCU, what are you seeing, and how challenging will it be for a guy like that?
Yeah, obviously very, very excited. We are all connected by this conference, so if one gets drafted, we feel we all kind of got drafted, so to speak. And so we're very excited about Isaiah getting picked. And, we wish him the best. We hope he has a great career. He's a very talented individual, obviously transferred to Jackson from Florida State, so he was I think a four-star recruit coming out of high school, 6'2" corner. Ran in the low 4.3s at his pro day. And so his issue was never physical, right? Not sure but what the circumstances were of him leaving Florida State, but he was able to land at Jackson, get coached by Deion Sanders, and have a great career there. So again, really excited for him. And I hope he makes it, but also hope the other 17 guys that sign undrafted free agent contracts from HBCUs, I hope they all make it as well. The more the merrier. And so it's really exciting. And again, we looked at the one drafted, but there are actually more guys this year who have an opportunity to go into rookie minicamp than I think there were last year. There were 4 drafted last year, and I think there were 12 undrafted free agents, so it's 11, somewhere in there. This year, there was only 1 drafted, but there were actually 17 HBCU players that signed undrafted free agent contracts. And so that's, I think, 18 individuals who have a chance to make the roster. So the more the merrier. Obviously, they didn't get drafted, but like I said, that doesn't mean that they won't make the team. And Isaiah Bolden, him getting drafted 7th round doesn't guarantee that he's going to make the team. He still has to go prove himself. He still has to go be consistent, make plays, be coachable, and outperform the other cornerbacks on that roster. And if he can do that, I think he gives himself a great chance to make the team. But any guy that has that chance, we're really excited about, whether it's MEAC, SWAC, SIAC, CIAA, even some of the smaller HBCUs, because again, we're all connected by the HBCU, moniker. And when one makes it, we all kind of pat ourselves on the back because we feel we all help raise them together.
Coach, recently you enjoyed the spring game to showcase the Rattlers Nation and the Rattlers football program. Talk a little bit about the spring game as you've processed it, and as you put that behind you and you move forward. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, I thought it was a very productive spring. Obviously, it all culminates with the annual Orange and Green game. We had a very spirited draft, the Wednesday before, split the coaches up. They, were able to draft their players. We live streamed that, so it was great to get to have Rattler Nation, be able to be interactive in that and participate. And again, I thought it was a really, really spirited football game. Great weather. The Marching 100 was in attendance. The cheerleaders were there. I don't know the exact attendance number, but it was a pretty good crowd. On that spring game day. So it was a close game, went into overtime, and I think the green team pulled it out in overtime. But again, I thought we had 15 really good practices. We obviously got to get some guys back healthy. We had a few defensive linemen who didn't go through the spring because of some postseason surgeries. We had a couple of guys that had to get surgeries immediately after spring ball was over. And so again, getting all those individuals back healthy is going to be critical. Academically, we got to finish strong. They got to do a really great job in the classroom. That's kind of been our Achilles heel, over the last couple of years. So we really challenged the guys in the classroom to do the right things, to make sure they pass their classes, give themselves a chance to go into summer school. And if you got to get eligible in the summer with GPA or progress towards degree, do that. But we feel really good about the direction of this team. We feel this is the deepest, most talented team that we've ever had here during our tenure. And we don't feel like there are really any deficiencies in any area. There are obviously a couple of spots that we are still going to look to fill with the few scholarships we have available. But we feel confident that we can line up right now in our conference and be one of, if not the most talented teams in the SWAC. That doesn't guarantee success, doesn't guarantee a championship, but it does guarantee that it gives us a chance to do some really big things if we focus on the little things, and so we can do that, have a great summer, come into training camp, and lock in and have 25 great practices. I truly believe that this team has the makeup to not just get at the finish line, but get across the finish line and win our first Swac championship, and obviously have a chance to represent the conference in the Celebration Bowl and see if we can break this losing streak to the MEAC.
Coach, talk a little bit about recruiting and what happens between now and you've got about 16 weeks before South Florida. But what happens between now and your first game of the season?
Yeah, well, obviously, as soon as spring ball ends, we have our exit meeting. So last week, I met with every player, kind of went through everything: grades, summer plans, how they performed in the spring. Any questions that they had for me, and then once they finish up the semester, we're trying to bring them back in a couple of weeks to start off-season conditioning in the summer, right? And so for the players, it's about how much they can get in shape over the summer, how much better they can get, getting stronger, getting faster, more flexible, fine tuning, again, just their camaraderie. The summer is big for that, developing leadership. Our new additions will be here. So the guys that we signed after the mid-year that will be coming in, high school and transfer, they'll finally be here. So that'll be the first time that we really get a good feel of what our team will truly look like. And so we're excited about that. As far as coaching goes, it's recruiting time for us. So we're kind of twofold. We're hitting the road, going to high schools, going to junior colleges, kind of getting an early jump on the 24 class, but we're also finishing up the last couple of spots for our 23 class. We do have a few spots that are still available, and we're actively seeking those in the transfer portal throughout the junior college ranks. And so again, we can fill those hopefully pretty soon, get those guys here in summer school. We think that really gives us a leg up. But, recruiting for next year and for this current year for the coaches, finishing the semester strong, getting ready to come back in a couple of weeks and have the best summer that we've ever had here as we prepare for training camp in early August for our returning guys and newcomers. And again, I think everyone is locked in and focused on that. And I really like the makeup of this football team, top to bottom.
Coach, returning skill players. You look at Mr. Jeremy Musa, phenomenal quarterback, SEC experience, Vanderbilt, and definitely experience on the highest of 7 hills. But just talk a little bit about your offense and your defense and your special teams and some of the gentlemen that we look forward to seeing this fall.
Yeah, obviously starting on offense, it all kind of revolves around Jeremy. He has a great shot of being preseason SWAC Player of the Year. He will be the first team quarterback. He was second team last year. Shador transferred to Colorado, obviously, so that it automatically jumps him up to be the first team preseason quarterback. So again, I think everyone expects a huge season from him. He threw for 2,700 yards last year, over 20 touchdowns. Again, really grew into that role as the season progressed. And for Jeremy, the positive thing is this will be the first time throughout his college career that he will have the same offense, same play caller in 2 straight years, right? He's always had to learn a new system. So he's a lot more comfortable in the system now than he was last year. And I think that'll show on the field. His leadership has grown tremendously. He was already a team captain, as voted on by his teammates last year. But coming into his last season, he's an unquestioned leader of the football team. And so really excited about him and what he brings to the table. And then again, just skill-wise, you got Jamaria Shareed coming back, who's an all-conference caliber receiver. David Manigo, who's made a ton of plays here. Kamari Young as a 3-year starter at tight end. And then some of the newcomers, Jaquez Yant, everyone saw him in the spring game. 6'1", 6'2", 240-plus pound running back with great feet, great vision, soft hands. He's going to be a load. You add Kevin Dean to that mix. Again, with Leland Wilhoit, Terrell Jennings is returning. And so, again, very, very deep running back room. Up front, again, Jalen Goss returning as a first-team all-conference left tackle. Cameron Colvin as a second-team all-conference right tackle. TJ Lee started at center for us last year. Of course, we just got a commitment from a couple of key offensive linemen. So, again, offensively, we feel really good about the potential to be an explosive offense. Last couple of years we've kind of been a little more conservative because of our defense has been really good, but we didn't feel we just had the pieces across the board to really go and be aggressive. We do now, and so we're going to be a lot more aggressive on offense. Defensively, we got a chance to be the best defense by far since we've been here. And then last year we were top 10 nationally, year before top 5 nationally. This group has the makeup to be even better than those two because of our depth up front, because of our speed and athleticism at linebacker, and then just the playmaking ability from our secondary. So, again, Kamari Stevens, even though right now he's kind of mulling some decisions about whether he's going to enter leave, he's in the portal, but he may come back. If he does, I think we have arguably the nation's best pass rusher at the FCS level in Kamari Stevens, led the conference in sacks last year. Isaiah Major, as a linebacker, is a one-man wrecking crew, a phenomenal football player, but he's not by himself. Johnny Chaney made a ton of plays last year. Jordan Moore is a name that every Rattler will know pretty soon. He's a great football player. Really excited about what he brings to the table as a linebacker as well. Alan Smith, one of our signees, a very versatile guy. And so you look at the linebacker core, the defensive line with, Anthony Dunn, who had a big year as a freshman, Stanley Mentor, Donald Hall, General Hunt, the guys we signed, not in the mid-year, but just recently. And then secondary-wise, Eric Smith, Kendall Bowler, Javen Morgan, the all-conference performer, Lovie Smith, 3-year starter now, Jalen Glaze, who transferred in, had a great spring. So, again, just really excited about the potential of this defense to be just phenomenal, right? Really hard to move the ball against and score against. And then special teams-wise, Trey Wilhoit has been probably our biggest addition, and that's saying a lot when you got guys like Yant and Alan Smith and some of those other guys we just named. But to be able to punt the way he does to where we don't have really any drop-off from what we've had the last 4 years with Chris Vadul is truly amazing. So we'll still have the ability to flip the field, play the field position game, and that's really going to help us, in ball games. And then from a kicking perspective, we just signed the kicker, and so we're really excited about him coming in. We have a high school kicker, Michael Smith, that we're bringing in as well. And so we got two guys that have really strong legs that we feel can really, be weapons for us with kickoffs and field goals. And then obviously our return game, I think will be as good as anybody with K-Dot, Jamari Gassett, Darren Oxendine, Kevin Dean. We got some really dynamic guys with the ball in their hands. And so with our size, the speed, athleticism, and experience, we have the makings of, again, a dominating special teams group, a top 5 caliber defense nationally, and an offense that I think can, be the most prolific we've had since we've been here. So I'm probably doing what no coach wants to do, and that's really talking really good about his football team. But I'm just being honest about what I see, and I'm really excited about the potential of this team. Doesn't guarantee anything. We still have to coach them. They still have to buy in. We still got to do the little things right. But if we can all piece it together, this can be a storied year for the Family Rattlers football team.
Coach, you've been watching this program for as long as you can remember, reportedly. Talk a little bit about this ball club, and as you look at teams over the years, this team, you're telling us, is special, has a lot of talent and a great opportunity.
Yeah, I grew up right down the road. My godbrother played here back in the late 80s, so I had a chance to watch him play for Coach Riley. Once I became of age, in my playing career, really started to watch him. And then once Billy Joe got here in the mid-90s, I was just getting into high school. So if I wasn't coming here as a prospect, I was just coming because I was a FAMU fan. And just seeing, the Rack boys, seeing those prolific offenses that he put up. Once I left high school, I didn't see them play as much. But I do remember the Joe Taylor championship teams. Some of those, groups that he had a few NFL players on that team. So I can't say, with full confidence where this team would rank amongst those championship teams. I do know that offensively, I don't know if anybody will be able to ever duplicate what Billy Joe did back when they were scoring 50 points a game during there and throwing it around the yard every play. That's not our goal. We won't be that type of offense. It's not the Gulf Coast, up-tempo, fast-paced. We want to run the football. Not saying they didn't, but our identity is going to be that we're a tough, physical, hard-nosed team with speed, right? And so we have the ability to spread you out if we want to, but we also have the ability to line up and run the ball, down your throat if we choose to do that as well with our physicality. And so I think our identity will be a lot different than those teams where Billy Joe teams were kind of built around the offense and around speed. This team is built around great defense, solid, strong special teams, and an offense that has the ability to put points up, in bunches if the defense isn't sound. And so I think we'll be hard pressed, or someone will be hard pressed to find a more complete team in all three phases. I think there may be some better offenses that have come through FAMU in the last 30 years or so. Defensively, there may be some comparable defenses. Special team wise, I know they've had some phenomenal kickers in the past, some dynamic returners, Robert Kaiser, and Leroy Van, those guys. Van led the nation in kick returns and punt return his senior year. And so there have been some really dynamic units. But as a whole, offense, defense, and special teams, because of our depth, because of our just experience, I think this may be the most complete team that FAMU fans will have seen in a very long time.
Well, folks, there you have it from Coach Willie Simmons. The next time you can see this gentleman on the gridiron or on the sidelines with a clipboard and a headset, how about September 3rd, South Florida, as FAMU Rattlers and the Jackson State Tigers will meet for the Orange Blossom Classic. I'm James Hill. You're watching James Hill Sports. We're the best in HBCU football. Folks, we'll be right back.